How okay is it to fight live on air?
This is why we're not sat next to each other.
No, don't be blaming me.
We didn't tell them that when we were setting up, so that we can't lay fisticuffs.
Yeah, there'll be none
I've
of
never
that.
in my life said the term fisticuffs as though that's normal. Why did that just like roll out as though that's completely fine?
I'm so sorry,
Fisticuffs.
Mr. Tree, but you might have to move in a minute to tickle in my head. That is ever so funny. Okay, so where do we want to start?
God. So, welcome to Know You Matter. That's everything who we are. So I'm Lauren.
I'm Jacqueline.
Mother and daughter, obviously, if you can't tell. And we run the Blondes Restoration Limited. But within that, we're two arms. So we've got the restoration strategist, and you are
the restoration coach.
But our values, our mission, although we come at it from different prongs, it's all from the same core value, core mission. It's that we want people to know they matter.
Yeah.
So actually, it's quite interesting. My first question to you is going to be, so originally our motto when we made it was because you matter. So it was like all of the things that, because at that point we were kind of teachy, we were sort of trying to talk a lot about boundaries and values and all that kind of stuff. And it was to try and show people like, well, it's because you matter. Like, this is why like these things are important. And actually that's transformed now and it's become know you matter. So I'm interested to hear from your perspective as a business, as a person, in your work as a coach, what does that mean to you? Like, so when we've got matching hoodies that have on the back know you matter embroidered in our separate colours, what does it mean when someone reads that on the back and they're stood behind you in the shop? Why does that matter? Why do you want them to see that message?
What a question.
No pressure.
When you were talking to me then, or asking that question, like I just had this real sense in my chest, in my heart, this like warmth of, I think the world often means that, like, the world around us often means that we think that we matter because we've got a good job or we've got a good relationship or we've got nice clothes or all of those things. And I'm definitely somebody that's been in positions where I've had those things and I've not had those things. And I want people to know for themselves, because I think one of the big distinctions between because you matter and know you matter for me, and I'm not going to lay claim to this, Lauren, because it was you that said it, was about actually people knowing it for themselves, not we tell them that they matter. Because you matter felt like we were telling people, well, we think you matter. It's a bit like the first time I ever heard, somebody say, rather than say, I do this because I want to empower women, I'm doing this because I want women to empower themselves. And I think that comes right back to what I believe is that we are the expert on ourselves. We're so unique, and yes, absolutely, there are so many things that link us and connect us as human beings, and yet we are as unique as the stars. I love that. As unique as a star that isn't the same as the star next to it, which isn't the same star next to that. And this knowing you matter is that you can shine and sparkle and whatever stars do, give out light, and just have that inherent belief that you matter because you're a human being and you're alive. And so many people don't have that, and I know that I've been there, I know that you've been there. And this has really been a journey for both of us, hasn't it, about coming to this place where actually me mattering, my worth, because actually it is about my worth, isn't reliant on anything else external. Actually, it's me knowing that I matter no matter what, even in my lowest moments, even when I don't have a lot of money, when I don't have lots of things. And I guess so it's that, isn't it? So somebody stood behind me will either be curious and thinking, well, how do I know I matter? And I guess that's a whole journey to go on, isn't it? But, for someone to kind of think, yeah, no matter what, I do matter. Because from that, it's this part where when we know we matter, our voice matters, our actions matter, our thoughts matter, our feelings and emotions matter. So it's really interesting because I do want to say something before I go any further, because I had an amazing conversation at the beginning of this week with a potential client who, when we started to talk about, that whose responsibility is other people's feelings and all of that, and actually we're responsible for our own feelings, and knowing that we matter and our voice matters because of the way we want to lead, and whether that's in life or in work. And the first thing that she said was, oh, I'm noticing how selfish that feels to focus on me. And yet one of the biggest things that I've learned is that when I know that I matter, because I do know that I matter, and I feel it, I'm not just saying it, I think that's the bit. No, you matter. No, embody it.
Yeah.
When I know that I matter, other people matter too. So if I treat myself with regard, if I respect myself, which I've had to learn how to do, just so you know, if I respect myself, I am far more likely to respect other people. So know you matter, for me, it really is at the very core of who I am and who other people are as human beings. And that, so many people talk about serving others. For me, that's one of the ways in which we serve other people, is that by having this regard for ourselves, by knowing that we matter, we know the people matter too, because it isn't just me. And that's why it's not selfish. Because you begin to, the moment you begin to understand yourself, the moment that you begin to, realize the reasons why we behave the way that we behave, and, start to see that you have a right to have emotions and get things wrong and be a messy, emotional human being, you let other people be that too.
Yeah. I've got this image in my head of, like, I used to be a teacher, so I would hold myself to such a high standard, and I would be so exhausted like 90% of the time when I was working, and I was working late, and I was going above and beyond, because that's the way that I always showed my worth, right? Was that I was a perfectionist, and I was a goody two shoes, and that's how Lauren was important, was when she was, being spectacular. And that is fucking exhausting. But it also meant that I was pissed off at everybody else who wasn't doing that. Because if I wasn't able to say to myself, well, I matter anyway, so I matter whether I'm working or not working, whether I'm productive or unproductive, or creative or not creative, like all of those things. If I can't accept that, then I can't accept that other people matter. And like having a kid for me, because obviously this kind of all came into being when he was born, really drilled that home. Because until you see your kid and you're like, how can you not know that you matter? Which I can't imagine as my mother's fun. We'll come back to that, I'm sure, at some point. Someone can piss you off at work, and you have that at work, but you walk outside and you remember that they matter, that they're a human, because you matter, and all of a sudden you don't have to keep that grudge, you don't have to hold on to it, you don't have to, you hold them accountable in work, or you do what you need to do to get moved on, and then that's it, it's done, because you all have this deep-seated knowledge that you matter.
Yeah.
No
matter what, no matter how you show up, no matter, and I don't, this is not, and I think this is often the thing, isn't it? It's like, how many of us have rough days, days where, we just don't have the energy to do stuff.
Makes me think of that sound on Instagram that's like, I'm still a piece of garbage. Oh gosh, you've not seen
if
that.
Anyone's just listening to this and not watching the video, my face went, what?
Yeah. Well, what? I'm going to show you that. But it's like when your husband comes home after, and you're still in the same place on the couch that he left you, and it's like, still a piece of garbage. And it's supposed to be funny, but the point is that, the days that Dave comes home and I'm still on the sofa, I probably need to be. Or maybe I'm dissociating and I'm stuck in freeze. I don't know. We'll talk about all of those things at some point on this, I'm sure.
Oh, we will. We will.
But
that's why I like to talk about it.
But I guess it's that, isn't it? It's like you just matter. Like, you don't have to do anything to matter. You mattered as soon as you came into existence. And you said earlier about, like, we're like stars because we're all individual and all unique and we can all shine. But what's actually beautiful is that you are a star. Like, the product of who you are, the physical materials that you're made up with, were made in the heart of a star. And actually it was in the heart of a dying star. You literally are made of stardust. Like, that's literally what we're made of. And how can anyone who's made of stardust not matter?
Made of matter.
Made
See what I
of
did
matter.
there? I'm not generally that
Physics.
quick. Well, you say physics. I do think actually this might be a good time to point out that you mentioned earlier we are two arms of the same kind of business.
Two halves of one
Two
whole.
halves of one whole. And we come at things from different angles.
We do.
I think we're very interested in what each other is fascinated by. There's
Bingo.
There's bingo. Just so you know, we'll say this at the beginning, but we reckon that we're going to do podcast bingo where you begin to spot noises, words, things that we do often.
We could do a giveaway.
A giveaway.
People could get prizes for sending us
Spotted.
and going, I know you did it 16 times. You know, like the games you used to play as a kid at the fair where you guess the amount of jelly beans in a pot. It's like, how many times does Jackie say fascinating in one podcast episode? And I'll be editing it, so I'll know the answer, and you can guess too. That'll be fun. And then,
just for the audio people listening, my face is a picture right now going, hang on a second, I feel picked on. Yeah. But also I think that's fun, so yeah, we'll go for it.
Back to why there's a table in between us.
Yeah, we're not sat on the couch together. We're sat across from each other for a very good reason. No, honestly. Well, you'll see what happens.
We don't fight.
But yes, coming back to what I was saying, we call ourselves the scientist and the philosopher, or the philosopher and the scientist, because I am fascinated again by history and people and behaviour and all of those kind of things. Always have been. I knew at 16 when I did psychology that this is what I wanted to do, and I just went on a bit of a route to get myself here, for sure.
A path.
Whilst you, Lauren,
I'm
went
a physicist.
into physics.
I'm a physicist. My favourite sentence is, that's not rocket science and I can do that. I like saying that to people.
Yeah,
there was a trend recently on social media where everyone was like, social media is not rocket science or something. And I was like, the point is actually, personally, I think it's harder than rocket science because rocket science is pretty simple. And social media is not. So I'm a physicist. I was a head of physics in a northern coastal school, which was interesting. And then, and I loved it. I loved my job. I really did love it. But then, no doubt, as we'll talk about further in the future, I hit burnout and just lost the ability to do any of it well because I didn't know I mattered. That's the be all and end all of it. I was giving everything away to everybody else and then was pissed off that no one was giving it back. But no one was asking for it. Wasn't taking care of myself, didn't do any of that, and then got sick and then pregnant and more sick. And now, look at us now. Like, what a wonderful journey to have been on. So that's, so to go back to like why this is called Know You Matter for me, I think both of us have existed throughout parts of our lives where we treated ourselves the opposite of that. Where actually we were the bottom of the list, and the only way that we mattered was by making other people know they matter. You know, and I do love the idea of that. I do love the concept that if you're unhappy, make someone else happy and it'll make you happy. I do love that concept. But I do think there's something inherently misogynistic, patriarchal perhaps, about this idea that women should always be in this position of making other people happy, that we're responsible for other people's emotions. And, you know, we both grew up there in that, or we felt responsible for other people's emotions and we behaved like that for a very long time. And then, you know, our burnouts happened relatively close to each other. Well, pretty darn close.
I'd like to point out my third burnout. If I'm being really truthful with myself and everybody else.
Yeah.
The third time, as I've looked back on my timeline and thought about it. First time at 18.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, mine probably was around then as well.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it was the first time that we'd both experienced burnout and then finally had the slap in the face of, shit, this has got to change.
Yeah.
And we just seemed to be in a position in life where it finally felt like there was an opportunity for that. You know, like
I was about to say the stars aligned.
Yeah. We're just talking, maybe this episode is going to be called Written in the Stars. Oh, that's cute.
Written in the Stars, Know You Matter.
Is that too long? Know You Matter, Written in the Stars. Know You Matter's always first.
Know You Matter, Written in the Stars.
We'll go first, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's it for me, is that, you know, it's been a journey to come back to this other side where we know we matter. And then through our work, and we work so differently now, you know, I work with business and strategy and you work with humans, and coaching, and I realize that there's still humans in the business strategy bit before anyone says that. But the point is that my focus is on, like, you know, the process and the strategy and the systems, and your focus is on the people and their experiences. But actually, they're so interwoven.
Yeah.
They're so interwoven because, you know, I really enjoyed our recent strategy session where we both, like, it was like we was like set on fire. Like, we realized this know you matter was the key to everything, because how can you run a business? How can you be a great mum? How can you be a fantastic daughter? How can you love your life? How can you go traveling and do all the things that you want to do? How can you do any of the things that you want to do with full hopeless abandon unless you know you matter first? So that's why we're here. We hope that in every episode, all jokes aside about our disclaimers, if they end up in this one, is that if you listen to this, by the end of it, you're a little step closer to knowing you matter, if not all the way. I mean, that would be the dream, right?
Yeah, well, I would add as well that what I would love for people is that they get more curious about finding out, how do I know I matter?
Yeah.
Because that I think absolutely what you said there about that little first step
Tiny
is
little step.
even just kind of going, aha, it's not just me.
Yeah.
and there's a way to get to that point.
Do I know I matter?
Yeah. And I would like to come to the word restoration, because people may be wondering why the word restoration. And I've kind of had that on my radar for probably about a decade.
Yeah.
And I did the most incredible course, and it was talking about self-worth, and it was the word restore was written. And I don't know what it was. It just struck me as really important for me. I went away. I Googled what restoration, the meaning of it was, and I'm not. This was not religious at all, but the religious meaning behind it, that word, was to take something back to its original condition and make it stronger. And that for me, I don't know what, at that point, I think I was at a really difficult point, which I know we'll talk about in future episodes, but I was at a really difficult point in my life with lots of things happening. And one thing I didn't feel was strong. And also I felt like I needed to go back to reset and kind of look at who I was and what was serving me now and what wasn't serving me anymore, the way I was behaving and all of these kind of things. And I just had this vision of this restoration because, you know, I love things like the repair shop and stuff like that. And you watch people restore things.
Yeah.
You know, they restore houses and they restore cars and they restore paintings. And, you know, the diligence and the effort and the attention to detail and the love and the care that's put into looking at something and going, you know what, this is worth it. This is worth giving this love and attention and work on. And, you know, that whole process of making an assessment and what needs to happen, what do we need to keep, what do I want to get rid of? It was that. And it was that process. And I don't know, I just had this idea in my head that I was like, I feel like that's what I need to do on me. Like this restoration process. And I giggle because when I'm a trained counsellor, I also did a coaching accreditation just over 3.5 years ago. And my end piece, when we were talking, I showed a house with scaffolding around it. And it was interesting because for me in that moment, the scaffolding, because this is what was holding the house up and, you know, allowed me to start to do all of this work. And we'll talk more about scaffolding because Adam Grant, the organisational psychologist from New York, I love his take on that. He says scaffolding is the people and the tools and the things that you use. But I had this vision of this house being wrapped in scaffolding and already some of it was starting to come down. I mean, I think I was a bit presumptuous at that point, but for me, that's it. That's what restoration.
A bit like York Minster. There's always a piece with scaffolding on.
Well, the Forth Road Bridge always needs repaint, and you finish it and you start again.
You've learned loads and experienced loads, and you're just gonna have to go and figure it out.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, restoration is not a one-time job. Restoration is a continual growth, and that's what it felt like for me. It was, you know, because for me it's about my life, and I want to be able to learn more, and, you know, we'll talk about things like values because that's the kind of thing that we talk about with clients, and, you know, what matters to them. But yeah, restoration, that word, you know, it's, for me, it's that whole process of almost being surrounded by scaffolding and really beginning to look at, like, all right, what bits of me do I love?
Yeah.
What bits need work on and what bits are out in the skip outside. You know, this little kind of metaphor for the work that I do on me. So that's kind of where it was born.
Yeah.
And you, I know, Lauren, one of the things that I've loved, and your husband says this, is that we start having conversations and we just literally build on each other, don't we?
We love the house analogy.
We do love the house analogy. It still needs more work in terms of how we're going to bring that in. But
I really want to bring it back, actually, because the restoration and know you matter possibly seem like they're kind of separate, but they're really not. The first time we talked about restoration, we talked about the concept of the sentence actually was, you are your own home. And, you know, that really echoes for a lot of us. Like, we understand that, like, you know, everything around you may change, but who you are, the body you are in,
yes,
the mind you live with, you are your home. And I think that's really important, you know, and we talk about restoration, but the question I remember us talking about when we first started talking about restoration was like, how often are you off out, leaving your home to get dilapidated, to, you know, the paint's peeling, the garden's overgrown, all of those things. And as humans, that's us, right? We're not taking care of ourselves. We're not, whether that's emotionally, nutritionally, physically, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe we're drinking too much, maybe whatever that is. But you're spending all of your time going to other people. So I realised that I was spending loads of time trying to fix my husband's house. He didn't want it. He wasn't asking for it. He hadn't, you know, brought me in as a fucking handyman. But that's what I was doing. So I was trying to fix everyone around me and fix their houses. And then you walk back to yours and you realise there's no lights on and the window was left open and now it's cold. And, you know, and it's that kind of concept of when we were talking earlier about when you know you matter, you can take care of other people better. You can treat them like they matter. When you look into the concept of the fact that we are our own home, when I treat my home with respect, love, care and attention, and there may be times if someone's poorly or I need to care for someone that I have to walk away from my home and care for the people. But if I've put the work in to know that the windows are draft proof, if I've, you know, got a good roof, if I've put the boundaries in and I've got a great fence, it will probably last longer and allow me to go out then and help other people and then come back and give mine the support it needs, you know? So if you're sat there listening and you're thinking, shit, my home, my home's a dilapidated council estate, something, whatever. Mum's is a Georgian double fronted, but you know, we'll come back to that at some point. But if you're sat there thinking my house is definitely not being cared for, then that's what this is about. Because when we talk about restoration, I just think the idea of building something slowly and kindly and with care, like you would with a vintage car or vintage purse or whatever it is, like, why don't we deserve that? And I know that people will be watching this like, you are vintage, born in the 1900s. But
some of us further back than others.
But yeah, it's that, isn't it? It's the you matter, you restore yourself, and it might mean that you've got to take a bit of time not restoring other people for a while. Because
that, do you know, can I say that I think that's it, because I think restoration is the path to knowing you matter.
Yeah.
And just a little moment from a past client who I remember one of the first times I ever used the analogy of the house and this restoration, and she literally went, I go to everybody else's houses and plump their cushions. And what about my cushions?
I've peeled so many other people's wallpaper.
And I was just like, and she was, you know, at that point we weren't even really using any imagery or anything else.
No.
And very much in that moment, she was like, I need to go and find a picture of a house and what I think I look like now, and now I'm going to sort it.
It's a really nice visualization to do, though, isn't it? And it's also really, I think it's really affronting. Like, if you're like I was back when all of this began, one of the hardest parts of starting a journey like this is that you're not aware yet. And then something happens. Maybe you listen to a podcast or something hard happens in life and all of a sudden you get knocked. And then somebody says something. So I, like, you know, a lot of our conversations, and it was that just absolute realization that I'd allowed my home. I don't even think I'd visited it in such a long time. Like, I didn't know anything that was going on in it. And I think it can be quite scary, you know, when you realize that you've spent so many years away from it, because I'd spent a long time not in my own house, and not thinking about my body and my needs and what I wanted. And it's kind of scary to go back because, you know, I imagine for people who restore houses that when you buy one and it's in a state, it's quite intimidating that first time you go back there.
Overwhelming how much work needs to be done.
Yeah.
Particularly when you first get started.
And you know, it's a long road and, you know, you can't see the end yet and you don't know what it's going to look like and you can only hope. And that's kind of scary. And it is kind of affronting when you've not been faced with it yet. You know, that first time that you're like, shit, that's me. I'm treating myself like that. But I guess that's what human connection's for.
It is.
And the other people, you've spent so long helping other people, and now there are people who will come.
Yeah.
And people who will sweep out the debris, or they'll hang your curtains, or they'll weed the garden, you know, and sorry, probably have to ask for it. To those people like me who didn't like asking for help.
So I kind of want to say, even in that little conversation there, that little bit that you just said, there are a huge number of topics of things that we really do want to talk about. Things like people-pleasing tendencies, about actually being, boundaries, not asking for help, you know, putting everybody else first, not knowing how to, one, what it is that you need, and two, how to ask for it. Another one that you mentioned there was about your body. A massive thing for me was realizing that my body had been literally screaming at me. It was desperately in pain. And, you know, I'd gone from being incredibly fit and active to it hurt to even get out of bed. And the menopause is definitely something I want to talk about a little bit on this with Know You Matter, because, you know, that advocating for yourself is a huge thing for us. But that aside, I'd ignored myself and what I needed for such a long time that it has taken some journey to get back to it. And that's what I'm passionate about, is that, you know, there is a way to work your way through it, to get the scaffolding up, do the work, and know that, like anything, you know, if I use the analogy of a house, if I restored a house, I might want to redecorate in a few years' time. You know, things will still break. There
might be a really bad storm.
There could be a bad storm. There's a challenge bit, you know. So I will still need to do more work. So it's not a one-time job. It's done. It's finished. Yeah. It's actually, this is a process. And when you were saying there about the overwhelming part about suddenly realizing, I think as well for me was being able to have enough space within me to deal with the emotions that I went through of realizing that I'd got to this place that I was so not okay. The shame, the guilt, the sadness, the fear, because that's a biggie. I do want to talk about that in the future. The fear that I would never, I can feel that. The fear that I would never feel fit again, that I would, you know, never be pain-free, or it wouldn't get better at all. And yet the things that I've learned and the things that have shown me that I matter, because I've gone and done, you know, that work and explored about my nervous system. I mean, who knew? I should have listened more in biology. I did do that at O level as well. I won't talk about the fact I failed my A level, but I did. But yeah, so all of that, you know, knowing that there are things I can learn that can help me to restore. And you used the word a little bit earlier, so I'm going to kind of be a bit controversial now, because I don't think we need fixing. I don't think we're broken as human beings. I think, you know, actually there's this whole bit of it's some loving, tender care that we tend to give other people, or not if we're in pain ourselves.
Yeah.
And actually, it's fascinating. There's the word again. It is really fascinating what can change once you start to do that, and you treat yourself like you matter. I guess the biggest thing is, where do you start?
Yeah. And that's what you'll find. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, we're not giving away all the trade secrets. But we will talk about these things.
This is what we're going to... This is the whole point, isn't it? It's like, this is just a conversation between a mum and daughter, right? But we hope, between a mum and daughter who are mildly aware, sometimes awareness is the biggest problem. It's not, but I'll say that a lot. It's just a conversation between us and things that we love and things that we see. And it might be about business, and it might be about the Barbie movie, and it might be about something we've seen on Netflix. But the point is, it's just a conversation, and you'll get different perspectives.
Yeah.
You'll probably see some disagreements, which is fine, because we're getting to a point where that's okay too, because we both matter. And you'll probably hear us complain about our husbands.
My face went, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing that I would love to show on here?
Yeah.
Actually is about how we've learnt to work together, and that rather than disagreement, that might be our first disagreement, rather than a disagreement, actually it's about assertiveness.
Yeah.
Because what we're going to demonstrate is that
Hopefully.
we respect each other
Yeah.
enough that we don't lose our own thoughts, feelings and opinions, and we can embrace each other's, and that we meet in the middle. So we don't have to be on the same exactly on the same wavelength with something.
No.
You know, because you will see the world lived differently to me, Lauren, because of our different experiences. And for me, there was a really great saying. Annie, who was one of the tutors on my coaching course, said strong beliefs loosely held. And that is really key for me, because I believe in things, and yet I want to be the person that can be open enough to listen and listen well, and know that sometimes my perspective will change because of what I hear and see, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's that. You know, when they say stand in another man's shoes, we often do that from our perspective. But one of the things that we've talked about a lot is that if you were to have gone, if someone does something that you disagree with, if you consider that if you were to have gone through exactly what they had gone through in life, every experience, every challenge, every great thing, every hard thing, if you were to go through exactly the same as they had and get to the point they're at now, you would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because we're a product of our experiences, we're a product of our decisions, and that's what they've done. And it doesn't mean you need to agree with it, but it's just nice sometimes it's quite nice actually, because it releases like a bit of pressure, I think. Once you know you matter, and then you realise everyone else does too. And it kind of releases this expectation of being right. Because I think I definitely used to be the kind of person who was like, in order to be right, they need to be wrong. You know, and that kind of, I think it's a very black and white way of thinking. It's a very physicist way of thinking that there's a right answer and a wrong answer. And some of that is still true. Thank you, maths. But with humans, there are some things that obviously I'm very strong about that we might talk about at some point. But actually, a lot of human experience is based on sorry to rock your world. If you like being right, I like being right too, but got to learn and grow in it.
I guess I'm more shades of grey. I definitely am that person.
You'll hear that when we're speaking, I think, if you're someone new to Jacqueline and Lauren. You'll hear that I call Mum like the dreamer and the optimist. I think that she's very open as a person, very flowy. I'm quite solid in my decisions and my thoughts and I think we're both learning and experiencing from each other. I think we both
definitely
teach each other a lot about the way that we are, and that's what's really interesting, isn't it? Because I can be quite hard and fast in decisions and like judgments and things like that, and then there's been a few times that you've said something and I'm like, oh, hang on, maybe I'm being a bit quick off the mark.
I would like to say back to that though, that even just recently you say things and I will sit with it and realise that I need to step up and be more vocal and make a faster decision about something and do something about it.
More hard and fast.
Yeah, so I think that's the beauty of our differences. Yeah, and we're kind of just doing the figure thing.
I'm hoping someone's watching this, because otherwise you're not going to be able to see my hands are doing like a ba-la-la-la thing.
Yeah, I think the beauty of the being different is it does allow us to share our own perspectives, and it's the pair of us being willing enough and respectful enough of each other to listen. I think is a biggie. Yeah. That is a biggie.
And I think that's a nice place to pull this to an end and go, we're trying to listen. You enjoy listening, we hope. And we hope what's that, like 20 minutes? I don't know how long this first one is. We don't even know if we're going to put this out there as a podcast. Might do.
It's
Could be
longer
funny.
than 20 minutes, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I keep looking at your watch, but I can't see it because of the light. So I'm just going to hope that we've not overrun.
It's about 45 minutes, and we have overrun.
Ah,
just so you
Jenny,
know.
we're sorry. We love you. So yeah. So hopefully you'll enjoy listening, and we hope that you know.
Yes, I would love people to even just send us
comment,
nice comments.
message. No, we're open to all feedback as long as it's constructive.
Feedback.
Please don't call us names.
And also, I think you mentioned at the beginning, are there any topics that you'd love us to talk about as mother and daughter? You know, have you got any questions or things like that?
Or even just things you want to say and you want someone to hear it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want to do, don't we? We want everyone to feel seen,
Brilliant.
heard, and valued.
That's it. Seen, heard, and valued.
Adios, amigos.
Yeah, see ya.